If we look at Deuteronomy 32, Jehovah said that in the last days he would avenge the blood of the servants. Verse 43. And this is an important promise, and one that's developed throughout the scriptures. What's it meant by the promise to vindicate the blood of his saints? It's referring to the fact that historically God had sent his prophets to Israel repeatedly to call them to repentance and holiness. In response, Israel had repeatedly rejected and killed the prophets. Nehemiah recounted Israel's history. He says they were disobedient and rebellious against you, cast your law behind their backs, and killed your prophets, testified against them. Repeatedly, the Lord accused Israel of having hands red with the blood of the saints. Israel was judged in 721 BC, and Judah was judged in 586 BC for killing the righteous. Deuteronomy 32 looked at to the last days and the final judgment for killing the Lord's servants. If you remember what Jesus said in Matthew 23, we know that in Hebrews 1:2, he appeared in the last days. He stood in the temple and recounted Israel's history for killing the righteous. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets and stone them that are sent unto her. And one of the most famous parables of the important widow in Luke 18, Jesus spoke of the righteous suffering at the hands of their persecutors. He said the martyrs cry out to him day and night. Their cry was for vindication. And that's the identical word used in Deuteronomy 32 verse 43, where God promises to vindicate the blood of his martyrs in the last days. This is also the word that's used in Revelation 6 verse 9 through 11, where the martyrs are under the altar crying, "How long, O Lord, will you not avenge us on those who dwell on the earth?" Moses said that in the last days God would avenge the shed blood of his saints. Jesus said all the blood of all the martyrs, all the way back to creation, would be avenged in his generation. The last days foretold by Moses, therefore climaxed in that generation Jesus was speaking to. The stream of the martyr's blood flows throughout the scriptures, and it flows through the streets of one city, Old Covenant Jerusalem. From Deuteronomy 32 through Revelation, the stream flows. In Deuteronomy 32, Jehovah promised that in the last days he would finally avenge that shed blood. So when was that promise to be fulfilled? Was it to be at the end of this Christian age or at the end of time? No. If you're willing to accept what the scriptures say, what the inspired word of the Son of God says in Matthew 23:33 and 34. Jesus says, "Serpents, brood of vipers, how can you escape the condemnation? Therefore, indeed, I send you prophets, wise men, and scribes. Some of you will kill and crucify, and some of them you will scourge in the synagogues and persecute from city to city, that on you may come all the righteous blood shed on the earth, from the blood of the righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. Surely I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation." If we're going to accept Jesus as Lord and His Word as authoritative, we have to bow before His statements that the vindication of the martyrs was to occur within that generation at the fall of Jerusalem. If we believe what Jesus says, we can identify the last days. Moses said that in the last days, Israel's last days, God would avenge the shed blood of His saints. Deuteronomy 32, verse 43. Jesus, who appeared in the last days, Hebrews 1, verses 1 through 2, said all the blood of the martyrs, all the way back to creation, would be avenged within that generation. So it has to be that the last days that were foretold by Moses, the last days of Israel, occurred at the fall of Jerusalem in the 1st century.